You just imagined your wedding day. Maybe it already happened. Maybe it hasn't yet. Either way, you probably pictured the same thing everyone pictures. A dress, a ring, a room full of people crying happy tears. Because two people fell in love. But the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, marriage had almost nothing to do with love. It had almost nothing to do with the two people standing at the center of it. It was a survival contract. A political alliance. A trade agreement written in flesh instead of paper. Your ancestors weren't chasing romance. They were chasing something far more urgent. Survival. Start about 200,000 years ago. Small bands of early humans move across the African savanna. Maybe 20, 30 people. Everyone related somehow. Everyone dependent on everyone else. In a group that size, who you mate with is never a private decision. It's a group decision. Because a bad pairing doesn't just hurt two people. It can destabilize the entire band. So marriage, in its earliest form, wasn't a wedding. It wasn't a ceremony. It was an unspoken agreement about who could be trusted to share resources, defend territory, and raise children who would one day defend that same territory. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy spent decades studying this. Her research on early human child rearing revealed something surprising. Human infants are unusually demanding. They can't cling to their mothers the way baby chimpanzees can. They can't feed themselves for years. Somebody has to carry them. Somebody has to feed them. Somebody has to watch them while the group hunts or forages. Hrdy's conclusion was blunt. Human children could not have survived on a mother's care alone. It took a network. Fathers, grandmothers, aunts, cousins, sometimes unrelated group members who simply had a stake in the child's survival. Hrdy calls this cooperative breeding. And marriage, in this light, wasn't a romantic bond between two people. It was a formal way of locking a father and his entire extended family into that cooperative network. Without it, a child's odds of survival dropped. With it, the whole group gained a partner in the work of staying alive. Doesn't sound very romantic, does it? It gets stranger. As human societies grew larger, marriage stopped being just about survival. It became about power. Think about two neighboring groups, different territory, different resources, maybe a river between them, or a mountain, or centuries of tension. Peace between them is fragile. One bad harvest, one broken promise, and it collapses into raiding and violence. But what if a daughter from one group marries a son from the other? Suddenly, the two groups share blood. A war between them is now a war against your own grandchildren. Marriage became one of the earliest technologies for preventing war. This is why, across nearly every ancient civilization anthropologists have studied, marriages were arranged. Not by the couple, by parents, elders, chiefs, kings. The anthropologist Bronisław Malinowski documented this directly among the Trobriand islanders in the early 20th century. Marriage there wasn't a private romantic choice. It was deeply embedded in a web of gift exchange, land rights, and family obligations stretching for generations. A wedding wasn't the end of a love story. It was the beginning of an economic and political relationship between two families that would last long after the couple themselves were gone. You can see the same pattern in ancient Mesopotamia, in dynastic Egypt, in medieval Europe. Kings married princesses from rival kingdoms, not because they were charmed by them at a banquet, but because a marriage contract could do what an army couldn't. It could turn an enemy into family. Bride price, dowries, land transferred at the altar. None of it was about affection. All of it was collateral, a guarantee that both families had something to lose if the alliance failed. So when did love enter the picture at all? Later than you'd think. Much later. The biological anthropologist Helen Fisher has spent her career studying the neuroscience and evolutionary history of romantic attachment. Her research shows something fascinating. The brain circuitry for romantic love, the dopamine rush, the obsessive thinking, the craving for a specific person, is ancient. It likely evolved over 4 million years ago. But here's the twist. That circuitry didn't evolve to produce marriage. It evolved to produce short, intense attraction, just long enough to form a pair bond and get a couple through pregnancy and early infancy. Fisher's work suggests early humans were what researchers call serially monogamous, bonded intensely for a few years, then often moving on. Marriage as a lifelong formal institution came later, layered on top of that ancient wiring. And for most of that institution's history, the wiring and the institution had almost nothing to do with each other. You could feel intense romantic love for someone your family would never let you marry, and you could marry someone you felt no romantic love for at all. Two entirely separate systems, running side by side, rarely overlapping. It wasn't until surprisingly recently, historians generally point to the last few hundred years, in Western Europe and North America, that these two systems began to merge. The idea that you should marry the person you're in love with is, in the scope of human history, almost brand new. Before that, love was often something that was supposed to happen after the wedding, if it happened at all, not before it. Why does this matter to you now? Because the pressure you might feel around marriage, the checklist in your head, the timeline, the sense that you're supposed to find the one and build a life with them, all of that sits on top of two very old, very different systems that were never designed to work together in the first place. Your ancestors weren't failing at love when their marriages were arranged. They were solving a different problem. A harder one. Staying alive long enough, and safely enough, for love to even become a luxury anyone could afford to prioritize. Every time you scroll through a dating app looking for a connection, you're using 4 million-year-old circuitry. And every time you think about what a partner brings to your life, financial stability, shared family, long-term security, you're echoing a system that's arguably even older. One built by bands of humans who understood something modern romance sometimes forgets. That a marriage was never really about two people. It was about everyone those two people were connected to. You just imagined your wedding day again. Maybe now you're picturing something different. Not just a dress, and a ring, and two people in love, but an unbroken chain, stretching back 200,000 years, of humans figuring out the same impossible question you're still trying to answer today. Who do you trust enough to build a life with?